Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, we love to let the listeners in through behind the curtain, and I'm going to say that about 90 seconds has passed since the last time we recorded one of these shows. We're going to probably drop them about an hour apart or so on YouTube and on your podcast platform of choice. But on the last show, as we were talking about the return of Carnell Tate and the return of Jeremiah Smith and Hero Canoe going in the portal, I made some offhand reference to the fact that, we're expecting an announcement from Davison Igbinosun at some point between 5 minutes and 24 hours from now in terms of what he's going to do. And it was a lot closer to 5 minutes. It might have been about a minute and a half. So, Tony, once again, we have breaking news.
Breaking news, Ohio State junior cornerback Davison Igbinosun will return to Ohio State in 2025. This comes from Pete Thamel of ESPN. He did not file paperwork to enter the NFL draft, which was due today for the players in the championship game. His quote, "I'm coming back to school to be a first-round draft pick." That is what he told ESPN. So, some more good news for the Buckeyes this week. If you're not sick of it by now, I guess, Davison Igbinosun returning for his senior season, who is he'll be a 4-year starter, just like Denzel Burke was. Of course, the first 2 years, first year at Ole Miss, the last 2 years at Ohio State, and his final year will be at Ohio State as well. 45 tackles this year, 2 interceptions, 2 tackles for loss, 9 passes broken up. People want to talk about his pass interference and his holding. This is a physical guy, 6'2", 193, makes this secondary older, more experienced, deeper, because Jermaine Matthews will be starting next year. They're very high on Aaron Scott and Bryce West. So, they would be able to operate without Davison Igbinosun. But having him back is huge. And I know because I've seen it on Twitter, there are some Ohio State fans are like, well, I could take him or leave him. It's the same thing you said about Damon Arnett before he came back for his senior season, and that dude was awesome as a senior. And I'm expecting Davison Igbinosun to be really, really good for the Buckeyes in 2025 as well.
Well, he's someone who gives them he raises the floor of what that secondary could be, because you're losing so much, losing Denzel Burke, losing Jordan Hancock, losing Lathan Ransom out of that back end of that defense. And just bringing back Davison Igbinosun, let's say that the people who are really down on him are right, just for a moment, and just say, okay, if they have better players, they will play the better players. If they feel they have better options there, by all means, they will play the better options. But you kept seeing him out there this year, and they did have a good option. They had another good option in Jermaine Matthews, and he was certainly playing in a rotational role. He played a bunch of snaps in every game in the back half of the season. But there was a point where Denzel Burke did not play in the second half of the Cotton Bowl, really. Well, Davison Igbinosun did, and Jermaine Matthews did. And having Davison Igbinosun out there meant you didn't have to throw a true freshman out there in, a really big game against a team with a very, very good wide receiver core. So, having him back just gives you a really important veteran in that room, because they're losing their whole starting defensive line. You're losing Cody Simon. You're losing 2 corners. You're losing a safety. You should be extremely happy to have, we earlier you and Kevin did a show. Sonny Styles is coming back. That's huge. That's great news for Ohio State. You've got, now you get Davison Igbinosun coming back. That's big news for Ohio State. You don't want to be the team that's replacing 10 starters on defense. That's not a good spot to be in, even if, it's Caleb Downs is the only guy coming back, and boy, Caleb Downs is really good. Yeah, but you need other guys there with him. Having Sonny Styles coming back, having Davison Igbinosun coming back, and, getting a bunch of these guys who are sort of rotational or situational players, guys like Arvell Reese, guys like Lorenzo Styles, guys like Edric Houston and other folks like that who had earned bigger roles during the course of the season. They're not starters, but you can give them, 0.25 of a starter or something like that. Jermaine Matthews is probably about 0.5 of a starter coming back in that secondary. That all adds up, because you've got guys who've played in the national championship game, in the Cotton Bowl, in the Rose Bowl, on the road at Oregon, on the road at Penn State. These are guys who've had to do it already. So you're not just starting from scratch. And, when you're playing Texas in the first game next season, it's not going to be huge and scary and overwhelming for them because they've literally played Texas before.
And with Davison Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews as your two starting corners, that's the best pair of corners in the Big Ten. I don't know where they rank nationally, but you'll be hard pressed to find a duo that is better than that. At least in the Big Ten. We'll see about the rest of the nation. They're going to be better than most in the nation. That allows you to bring in Aaron Scott to ease things in, Devin Sanchez to ease things in, kind of allow those two guys to compete for that next spot. And then it's a long season. So we saw how they rolled Jermaine Matthews in, who was essentially a backup for, the first 6 or 7 games. He's a spot starter. He started, I think, twice as a true freshman. So there was a role for him, but that role expanded as the season went on. And with as focused as the strength staff and the coaching staff is on 16 games or 17 games, there are roles for multiple corners. And to have somebody as experienced as Davison Igbinosun back is huge for this and allows for the young guys to ease in and not to be put in situations that they can't necessarily handle. But also, if they do get overwhelmed by something, you can just go back to the veterans. Now, I think I don't know that he's going to be doing much this spring, whenever that is, whatever the spring looks like for Ohio State. Davison Igbinosun could probably take it a little bit easy and catch up in fall camp. But this is a big get retention for Ohio State, losing so many veterans all over the line. So now they've kept all three all guys that they could have, not all of them, but they kept Sonny Styles, they kept Davison Igbinosun, and Caleb Downs obviously can't go to the NFL. So everybody else was seniors. They kept their non-seniors, so there is some carryover from this defense to the next, and I think that's going to be huge for the Buckeyes. Tom, anything else on Davison Igbinosun and what his return means?
Well, I've seen some people talking about Devin Sanchez, and Devin Sanchez could come in and start as a true freshman, and so you don't need Davison Igbinosun. And no one is a bigger fan of Devin Sanchez than I am. Like, I think he could come in and be, someone who does make an impact as a freshman. When you look back at true freshmen starting for Ohio State very early in their careers at corner, Denzel Burke did that in 2021. How was the Ohio State defense in 2021? My recollection is not great, and that was not Denzel Burke's fault, but that's generally true freshmen starting at corner for you day one is generally a sign that the depth is not really there. If Devin Sanchez can come in and play at that level, he'll have a role. If he's not quite ready, and virtually no one is, maybe he will be, but you don't need him to be. Now you have the luxury of, if he's ready to go, great, you put him in there. If he's not, that's totally fine, because that's not really a fair expectation to put on a true freshman. They're very high on Aaron Scott. Aaron Scott played a decent amount throughout the year, but not a ton, because they didn't need him to, and he wasn't really 100% ready. Bryce West, they're very high on Bryce West. Bryce West missed spring ball, so that put him a little bit behind, but they really like him too. And so you didn't have to have him out there. So you had a year where you could sit, learn, watch those guys, get the mental reps from watching, two really, really good corners like they had this year. And now those guys are gone, and now you're ready to take on a little bit of a bigger role. You want that sort of gradual fitting into a bigger role year by year. That's in addition to the actual on-field benefit of having Davison Igbinosun back, the fact that you can then ease those guys into a bigger role and not kind of just, teach your kid to swim by throwing them in the deep end of the pool. That kind of works probably, but it's not necessarily, there's some thrashing and screaming involved. And, if you have Davison Igbinosun back, that probably limits the thrashing and screaming that Ohio State fans will be doing next fall.
Yeah, I think in terms of Devin Sanchez and freshman expectations, the realistic freshman season is what Aaron Scott had this year. A realistic expectation of a top guy is kind of what Jermaine Matthews had as a true freshman. It's like, okay, I can see it. Don't expect it to happen, but it could happen. The unrealistic expectation is the Denzel Burke thing or the Jeremiah Smith thing. Like we're old enough, Tom, to remember in 2002, people hoping Justin Zwick would start as a true freshman over Craig Krenzel. And that, all due respect to Justin Zwick, that team needed Craig Krenzel. So everybody loves recruiting, but the actual football is a little bit different. So there you go. Davison Igbinosun back to Ohio State, long, tall, corner, physical guy, coming back to win a national championship? I don't know. Beat Michigan, win a Big Ten, and improve his draft stock. So that alone, the fact that he's concerned about his draft stock should make Ohio State fans happy because, you gotta clean up some things. And so once he does that, then the sky is the limit for that guy. So there you go. If you could hit the thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, we would appreciate that. And we're gonna have to end here before something else happens, or we can just continue to go in case something else happens. But no, Tom, let's go ahead and end this one. Hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. And of course, continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.